While films sometimes end up flopping unexpectedly, box office bombs can more often be seen coming a mile off. And that's absolutely true of the following movies, each of which marked themselves as a commercial flop months, perhaps even years, before they finally landed in cinemas. I'm Ellie for What Culture, and these are 10 recent box office bombs everyone saw coming. Number 10, Better Man. There are few business decisions in recent Hollywood history more unhinged than scraping together $110 million to fund a Robbie Williams biopic where he's depicted as an anthropomorphic chimpanzee via cutting-edge, ultimately Oscar-nominated VFX. Given that Williams isn't remotely well known in the US, and biopics have generally struggled commercially in recent years, it goes without saying that producing a mega-budget dramatization of his life, and one with such a bizarre, mainstream alienating conceit, was doomed to flop. For though Better Man received rave reviews from many prominent critics, it ended up grossing just $20.3 million globally, not even 20% of its budget. That's a disastrous figure any way you slice it. And yet it was wholly predictable, given the combination of tricky concept and massive production spend. At the very least, Better Man will have a long shelf life as a cult curio that's held up as one of the boldest and most creative musician biopics ever made. But don't expect anyone to take a wild swing on a biopic like this anytime soon.
Before we go any further, this video is brought to you by Surfshark. Using a VPN like Surfshark is a bit like wearing pants. All the important stuff stays private and secure when you're out and about online. Thanks, Surfshark! Not only that, but we've all spent an evening scrolling through Netflix just because you can't find something you want to watch. Well, with Surfshark, you can change your virtual location to access all your favourite content. Whether that be your favourite US TV shows or a movie that you are desperate to watch but for some reason is only available in Peru. Cheers, Peru! First Paddington, now this, you're alright. Plus, you can minimise buffering and lag with fast, reliable connections and enjoy seamless streaming with unlimited bandwidth for all users. They also offer over 3,200 different servers in over 100 locations. I mean, there is no way you could guess them all. I adore all their different locations. I mean, for Surfshark, I Uzbekistan.
Are you finished?
Yeah, let's go. I'm hungry. They also offer 24/7 customer support and a 30-day money-back guarantee. And why not check out Surfshark Alert 2, a breach detection system that notifies you of personal data leaks. Click the link in the description or use code WCULTURE at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. And now, back to the video.
Number 9, The Apprentice. Though Ali Abbasi, the director of Donald Trump biopic The Apprentice, expressed confusion at the film flopping commercially, it's an outcome which countless analysts and observers saw coming months ahead of time. Despite awards buzz for Sebastian Stan's uncanny, eventually Oscar-nominated performance as a younger Trump, and a totally sensible budget of just $16 million, The Apprentice tapped out at a poor $17.3 million. And yet the calculus is simple. Many people, especially Americans, are tired of the political media cycle and Trump's never-ending presence in it. And so the prospect of watching a drama about his early life simply wasn't appealing. Conversely, Trump's supporters would want nothing to do with a film that disparages him. And so a movie was made that had incredibly limited appeal to the general public at large. Combine this with The Apprentice's struggles to secure distribution due to its controversial depiction of its subject, and distributor Briarcliff Entertainment's limited resources to give it a major rollout, and this wasn't a surprising result in the slightest. Number 8, Wolfman. Blumhouse has basically cracked the code on delivering consistent box office returns on their horror output, no matter the all-over-the-place quality. Yet even they couldn't propel Lee Whannell's Wolfman to commercial gravy. Though on paper, this one had a ton of potential. Its marketing momentum was heavily impacted by pre-release concerns about the Wolfman's design, due to inaccurate reports suggesting that it would look like this. By the time it hit cinemas, Wolfman had dealt with months of social media negativity, and failed to offset it with a set of especially compelling trailers. Then there's the fact that stars Christopher Abbott and Julia Garner, for all of their immense talent, simply aren't major names that will entice audiences alone. And it's impossible to ignore the film's mediocre critical and audience reception, with many expressing disappointment with the title creature's design in particular. As a result, it wasn't at all surprising that Wolfman was a rare studio horror to flop, grossing just $34.9 million against a $25 million budget. While not a disaster for Blumhouse, given their tendency to operate in the low-budget realm, they were surely hoping for a repeat of the $144.5 million grossed by Warnell's The Invisible Man. Number 7. Juror Number 2. Clint Eastwood's new legal thriller Juror Number 2 was so egregiously mistreated by Warner Bros. Discovery. For though films such as this tend to go direct to streaming these days, they're rarely as well received as the veteran filmmaker's latest. While originally intended to release direct to Warner Bros. Discovery's streaming service Max, the studio ultimately agreed to grant the film a cursory theatrical release, sending it into less than 50 cinemas across the US. As a result, it was a mere mathematical impossibility that Juror Number 2 could recoup its $35 million budget. Though boosted by its more widespread release throughout parts of Europe, it did manage to pull in $24.8 million. That's frankly not a bad figure, considering that Warner Bros. Discovery CEO and president David Zaslav had no interest in giving the movie a chance. He was reportedly keen to end the studio's long-standing relationship with Eastwood due to the commercial failure of his previous film Cry Macho, and did only the bare minimum lip service to the director's latest, with the paltry theatrical release largely serving as promotion for its streaming service release the very next month. Naturally, Warner Bros. Discovery's treatment of the film, which many deemed one of Eastwood's best in recent years, caught its fair share of well-earned flack online. Number 6. In the Lost Lands. Given that Paul W.S. Anderson's last 4 non-Resident Evil movies, Death Race, The Three Musketeers, Pompeii, and Monster Hunter, all flopped at the box office, why would his latest effort be any different? Even with Anderson's wife and regular lead Mila Jovovich teaming with Dave Bautista and tackling source material penned by the great George R.R. Martin, it was agonizingly clear this dark fantasy blockbuster was being sent out to die. Distributor Vertical barely marketed the film at all before releasing it in a low 1,370 North American cinemas, where it grossed a shambolic $1.1 million in its opening weekend. This makes it unlikely to gross even 10% of its $55 million budget worldwide, ensuring Anderson's film is guaranteed to be one of 2025's most catastrophic flops relative to its budget. Everything pointed to this happening for months before its release. And honestly, many surely predicted it the moment the project was first announced, with Anderson in charge back in 2021. Number 5. The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. Warner Bros. Strikes again, because though they produced The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie through their Warner Bros. Animation label, they opted not to release the film themselves, instead auctioning the rights off to Ketchup Entertainment. Though Ketchup did get the film released in almost 3,000 cinemas around the US, as a boutique label without the money for a major marketing spend, the theatrical bow was ultimately incredibly low-key. There is, however, also the unavoidable truth that Looney Tunes' popularity has declined significantly in recent years, especially with younger audiences. And then there's the tendency for 2D animation to severely underperform compared to 3D. I don't know what you're talking about. Looney Tunes and 2D animation is my childhood. Even with strong reviews working in its favor then, it wasn't at all surprising that The Day the Earth Blew Up opened to just $3.1 million in North America. Alongside a meager international release, this ensured that even with its mere $15 million budget, there's just no path to big screen profitability. Though the filmmakers have passionately campaigned to keep the film in cinemas in the hope that positive word of mouth might give it a nudge, it's basically over. Hopefully, the movie might find a second life when it hits streaming though. Number 4. Black Bag. Steven Soderbergh's new spy thriller Black Bag is the best reviewed major release of 2025 so far. Yet despite near universal critical acclaim, did anyone even know it existed until a week or two before release? The low-key marketing campaign didn't suggest that Focus Features had a ton of confidence in this one. And it certainly didn't help that the film was saddled with a terrible title that's more likely to make people think of bin liners than a sexy star-studded spy outing. But the real killing blow was the film's stonking $50 million budget. Now, this might not sound immediately absurd given Soderbergh's industry cred and the superb cast, including Cate Blanchett, Michael Fassbender, Naomi Harris, Regé-Jean Page, and Pierce Brosnan, but given that Black Bag is a largely dialogue-driven film taking place in just a few rooms, it's tough to see where all the money went. As such, it didn't stand a chance at the box office, opening to a brutal $7.5 million in North America, ensuring it's basically impossible for the film to gross the $100 million it needs to be considered a theatrical success. Number 3, Love Hurts. With the new action comedy Love Hurts, Universal was clearly hoping to entice the demographic who turns out for John Wick movies and showed up for the Bob Odenkirk-led actioner Nobody in 2021. But even with the counter-programming benefit of releasing on Valentine's Day weekend, the Ke Huy Quan starring romp has grossed just $17.5 million against an $18 million budget. Much as we love Ke Huy Quan, he's no box office draw in and of himself, even with a recent Oscar win to his name. But the real offender here was the mediocre marketing, which failed to really sell the film's genre-bending action rom-com premise, nor persuade of the romantic chemistry between Quan and female lead Ariana DeBose, whose own string of flops are quickly earning her a reputation as box office poison. It additionally didn't help that the film also had disastrous critical reviews, ensuring this one screamed wait for streaming to most people. Number 2, Mickey 17. Mickey 17, the new film from Parasite filmmaker Bong Joon-ho, is precisely the sort of wild blank check movie you get to make after directing a Best Picture winning masterpiece. A deeply weird R-rated adaptation of a fairly niche sci-fi novel with an eye-watering $120 million budget, this thing never stood a chance of turning a profit. Even accepting the credibility of the cast and crew, Bong Joon-ho is hardly a household name outside of cineast circles, and Robert Pattinson isn't an inherent box office draw. Also, the central concept didn't have a hook which could swiftly engage more casual moviegoers from a mere poster or trailer alone. Then there's the fact that Bong and Warner Brothers reportedly battled over the film's final cut, causing enough delays that the film released almost 2.5 years after shooting wrapped, during which period many reports were written about the movie's troubled post-production. And finally, the critical reception was solid, but certainly not spectacular, while the film's B cinema score indicates a fairly middling audience response. That Mickey 17 has no hope in hell of grossing the approximately $300 million it needs to be a surefire hit shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Number 1, The Unbreakable Boy. Lionsgate's wince-inducing streak of flops was extended with their new drama film, The Unbreakable Boy, which, despite being adapted from acclaimed best-selling source material, barely made a dent with audiences. The writing was on the wall for this one though, given that the movie wrapped filming at the tail end of 2020, yet numerous release days caused it to only finally hit US cinemas more than 4 years later. Producers claimed that they wanted to save the film's release for a less politically divided time in the US, but evidently realizing that that wasn't going to come to fruition, finally put it out back in February. From the marketing through to the mediocre reviews, lack of bankable stars among the cast, and star Zachary Levi's rather controversial rep in Hollywood as of late, everything conspired against this one. Despite getting an A cinema score from the few audience members who actually bothered to see it, The Unbreakable Boy ended its run with a disastrous $6.7 million. And though the film's budget has never been released, it clearly wasn't indie movie cheap.